Do you happen to enjoy abandoned places? Do you also happen to enjoy World War II history? Well, you're in luck because we're exploring some abandoned World War II history, specifically a secret coastal base used as part of America's defense network. There were many bases like this built along the coast in the early 1940s, but the one we're focusing on is here in Rhode Island. Next to this base, across a small pond, is Point Judith Light, overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. The base and this lighthouse specifically are very important because the final naval battle of World War II between America and Nazi Germany actually happened off the coast here. But we'll get to that a little later. First, I want to take you to the abandoned military installation nearby. As usual, to get there, we had to hike through some brush, but seeing as it's right by the ocean, it was a pretty nice walk. For example, these pretty flowers, and a fearless baby bunny who loved the cameras. Look at this little guy. A little ways in, and the path opened up to one of the old roads. You can see the lighthouse from earlier in the distance right here. Right off the path is my favorite part of this base, the concrete remains of a fire control tower. A fire control tower is a structure located near the coastline used to detect and locate enemy vessels offshore, direct fire upon them from coastal batteries, or adjust the aim of the big guns by spotting shell splashes. There are two parts to this structure that we can see here. The top level is the observation station. This is where instruments like telescopes or depression position finders would be, and the operators up here would then relay any information down to the first level. This is where the plotting room would be. This was the brains of the operation, basically, telling the big guns exactly where to shoot against enemy ships or aircraft. Less exciting but still cool are the foundations for some of the munition stations and artillery along the beach. Right next to this is one of the old bunkers where the ammo would be stored. You can see the opening to the bunker kind of hidden in the rocks right here. Inside is completely empty, just concrete floors and walls. Looks creepy, right? Well, if you want to explore these bunkers, I've got some bad news for you. These are now all sealed up with rocks. So, I am very sorry about that. Okay, back to the fire control tower now. Let's talk design. These were secret in the sense that they were camouflaged to resemble beach cottages in the area. Hard to tell now, but there is evidence of this hanging off the back. Luckily, the original roof is still here. The exact same roof and materials that other houses in the area had at the time. There also would have been a wooden facade covering all of this concrete. Here's a photo of a preserved one with a similar concrete base to give you an idea of what this would have looked like. It's pretty well hidden. Now onto the rest of this fort. This is a part of Fort Greene. It's one of 3 small bases in the area, and it's the only one that's abandoned. It was built built around 1940 to reinforce America's coastal defenses. There are only 2 buildings remaining. Unfortunately, there's nothing really too interesting in these. They've been pretty gutted and are just falling apart now. These remaining buildings have been abandoned for at least the last 20 years. They're actually owned by the nearby city of Providence. Sometime after World War II, this base was converted into a camp for youth, adult, and senior activities. Eventually, due to budget concerns, which usually happens, the city stopped using this camp. Since the day they closed up and locked the gates, this spot has been left open for the elements and the bunnies. As I mentioned earlier, off the coast here was one of the last naval battles of World War II between America and Germany. The Battle of Point Judith. Here's some quick background. In 1945, near the end of World War II, a few things happened very quickly. First, with the Allied forces approaching Berlin and his capture imminent, Hitler committed suicide on April 30th. His successor, the new president of the German Reich, Karl Dönitz, saw Germany's surrender coming quickly and began to tell German forces to cease attacks on Allied forces. One of these directions came on May 4th, when he directed all U-boats to cease attacks. While most commanding officers obeyed this order, some either did not receive it or chose to ignore it. U-853 was one of those submarines. And on May 6th, just 2 days before Germany's unconditional surrender, its commanding officer fires torpedoes at American forces. This is one of those mysteries of World War II. Why had U-853's commander, the 24-year-old Lieutenant Fromsdorf, failed to heed orders? He and his crew were alone, thousands of miles from home, in enemy territory, and attacking would basically be a death sentence. So, why do it? The most likely answer is that U-853's radio had been damaged or disabled from attacks by US forces. This damaged radio probably even helped keep the crew alive for so long. 4 other U-boats sent to America about the same time all reported in regularly, but were sunk by early April, which suggests US intelligence was intercepting messages and tracking them down. This left U-853 and its crew all alone when they chose to fire upon the SS Black Point, an American merchant ship, killing 12 of the 46 men on board. Now for another mystery. Instead of escaping at flank speed after the attack, the captain lingered in the area in shallow water. In the meantime, a total of 11 Navy and Coast Guard ships arrived and immediately set up a barrier force, starting a sweep search with echo ranging. After locating a slow-moving object underwater, they launched magnetic depth charges, with one of them registering a hit by exploding. The barrage continued until the U-boat was confirmed destroyed, and items belonging to the crew began to float to the surface, like this German life raft. All 54 men aboard the U-boat were killed. And And so the Battle of Point Judith ended, and U-853 and its crew laid in its final resting place. And that resting place remains today, abandoned in about 130 feet of water close by the coast here. It's unclear if any of the crew on board survived the initial blasts. Reports from sonar shortly after the U-boat stopped told of a rhythmic hammering on metal surface, which was interrupted periodically. The Navy has never officially commented on the possible source of that sound. You can still see a few of the holes from the explosions. The first one is here on the top of the deck. And the second is here on the side. And there's also another large one towards the back of the U-boat. Just 2 days after this happened, the surrender document was signed, and Lieutenant Fromsdorf had wasted a total of 66 men's lives in a final, violent act of war. The more I explore New England, the more I realize how much hidden history is so close by. I find it extremely interesting, so I hope you enjoyed it. You can check out the rest of my Abandoned from Above series on my channel right now. Also, here's some behind the scenes footage of what one of these shoots typically looks like.